Welcome, welcome. We are doing our daily learning in the book of Tehillim, the book of Psalms. We're in Psalms chapter 2. Take a look, Psalms chapter 2, written by King David himself. Really beautiful words that inspire the world all the way from back 3,000 years ago to now. So we are in Psalms chapter 2. This chapter is a very apocalyptic, messianic chapter. It speaks about the end of times, the war of Gog and Magog, described in the book of, later, the book of Ezekiel. And that's what it's speaking about. It's speaking about the end of times. It's a very apocalyptic chapter. So the verse, and it's also important to note that the rabbis disputed this chapter. Some say that it belongs to the first chapter, that this and the first chapter of Tehillim are one and the same, while others say that the two chapters are separate chapters. So you have this difference of opinions, whether this is part of the first chapter of Psalms or it's a chapter in and of itself. But either way, it's been divided in the standardized Bible. So verse 1 is, Lama ragshu goyim uleumim yehegurik. Why are the nations getting so excited? And as you may know, if you're familiar with sort of the apocalyptic narrative, the war of Gog and Magog, it's where there's a war between all the nations in the end of times. It captures the imagination of many, the entire concept of the war of Gog and Magog. Yatzvu malchei eretz veroznim nosdu yachad al Hashem al Meshicho. The nations of the world, the kings of the world, and the dukes of the world gather on God and his anointed one, which is talking about the Messiah. It speaks about the Messianic era. They say, let us disenfranchise him and disconnect him from everything that it keeps him connected. And Yoshev Bashamayim Adonai Yitzchak Lamo. God who sits in heaven is laughing at that. And the idea is that God will protect his anointed one. Verse 5, God will then speak to them in his wrath, and his wrath will scare them. I have appointed my king and established him on Zion, my holy mountain. And next is verse 7 is very powerful because he's speaking to King David. So King David is saying, verse 7, I'm sorry. So again, I have established my kingship on Zion, and that is David. It's important to note, King David and the Davidic dynasty are also the forebearers of the Messiah. So the Messiah is a descendant of King David. And so that king, the King Messiah, who's a descendant of King David, is going to reign high on the mountain of Zion. And God says, listen, you are my child, and your dynasty is going to succeed. And again, this is the Davidic dynasty and the Messiah. And so he tells him, ask from me, and I will make sure that you will inherit nations, and you will be the one to inherit the many, many multitudes of the nations. It's important to note many of the analogies of war and victory in Tanakh in general, in the Bible in general, but also especially in the works of King David, compare victories to, for some reason, that's I guess it was very common then, but they compare military victories to the ability to smash pottery. So if you were victorious, you smashed your enemies like pottery. So he says that is what's going to happen. He tells King David, the Messiah, you will be so successful, you will smash them. And now kings, become wise. And those who are judging the world, think about this. And here comes a really beautiful verse that's actually pretty famous. There's a lot of popular thought these days about worshiping God with joy, celebration, and happiness. But also, it's important to note that when we're serving God, the idea of serving God, this is actually was much more popular in the Middle Ages. Serving God is also something that requires reverence and thoughtfulness and a sense of awe. So, serve God with awe, and even when you rejoice, do so with trembling. And the idea is that recognizing God's awesomeness does require not only joy, but also a level of seriousness. Nashku bar penyenaf, make sure you purify your heart, lest God be angry, v'tovedu, and then you will be destroyed. And so just make sure you purify your heart, just like the wheat is purified from the chaff. V'yovdu derech, lest you lose way. Because if you don't purify your heart, God's anger is gonna be kindled. Ashrei kol chosebo. Blessed are those who bask in the shadow of God. So that is the second chapter of Tehillim. Tomorrow's chapter is chapter 3, and it's really beautiful. It's about King David and his son Avshalom, which is a complicated story. We'll share tomorrow. See everyone tomorrow at 12 o'clock. I thank you for joining and appreciate you doing this very much. Hope to see everyone tomorrow.